I am taking the screen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, where we talk everything fantasy. Today is all about the amazing, the wonderful, the 9'11", the Giant, and the Pelican. And today,
Have you been watching
we are.
WWE?
Hey, I was actually thinking about starting that back up today. Don't talk crap about WWE. I love watching 6'2" half naked men touch each other like that. I just love it so much. But
That's
and
What am I signed up for?
we're getting into gender and sexuality in another podcast.
oh, that's right, that's right. So we are here today talking Andy's newest release in the Queen of Thieves series called
Thief of the Night Guild.
Thief of the Night Guild, and we are going to be doing a reading for that today. We are here today with Andy's awesome fans, Rebecca, who is also an author, and Sarah. Are you also an author or just a fan?
I pretend.
Ooh, that's me too.
Be an author.
Sarah's awesome.
People keep making books, and they put my name on it. Does that count?
Ghost, yeah, that's wow. Hey, she's good, Andy. She's good.
Yeah, and actually, she's the host of the Pagan Musings podcast, which I was just on Sunday.
Oh,
Sunday night.
awesome!
It was perfect, to
Yeah.
have her on here. If
I didn't hear the other two.
If Philip, her co-host, had written fantasy novels, we would totally have gotten them both on at the same time, and it would have been me controlling everything instead of me being the guest. But
So, what is that? What is that podcast again?
Pagan Musings?
Pagan Musings. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
a little bit about it.
We're pagans, and we kind of muse around, and we like to talk about stuff that's paganish, and that's about it.
Oh,
And really nerdy stuff too. Because we had a whole conversation about Doctor Who a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Pagan. Okay. Well, that's a
Yes.
serious. Whoa. Pagan music. That sounds interesting. I'll have to check. Yeah. I'll have to. Wow, Sarah, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to really check that out. If it's going like this podcast is, it's for sure gonna be interesting. So, Andy, please, I know we don't do this a lot, especially at the beginning, but can you please tell our viewers and listeners about your new release and a little bit about the series itself?
All right, so Thief of the Night Guild is the second book in the Queen of Thieves series. Queen of Thieves follows a child. In the first book, Child of the Night Guild, she is 8 years old, and she's sold by her father to the Thieves Guild, named the Night Guild. It's sort of the mob slash behind the scenes criminal organization running the city of Paramus, which she's in. And she's basically, the first book follows her from 8 to 18 as she goes through the horrible training and mental conditioning and all of that to become a thief. And it's virtual enslavement. She's not, chained or tied up, but she's basically brainwashed and conditioned to have everything. Her life is inside the guild. Everything revolves around the guild, almost like a cult to a certain degree. But it's a very professional guild structure, where there's the apprentices and the journeymen and the masters. And then in the second book, Thief of the Night Guild, she has become a journeyman. She succeeded at her undertaking, which is sort of like her special mission that she has to do to be accepted as a journeyman. And what she did to succeed in her undertaking earned her sort of a reputation for being a badass and better than everybody else. So we find her sort of at the height of her abilities and her confidence. She's standing up to not only to the people in her own house hot, but then the people in the guild council. She's sassy, she's sarcastic, she's cutting. It's such a fun character to write. And the book is basically her saying, okay, I'm done with this life of a thief. I have to buy my way out. And the guild says, UK, you're gonna have to pay like a ton of money. So this is how she gets it, essentially.
For your fans of the Last Bucellari series, would you say that this book is also just as action-packed and gory and awesome?
Nowhere near as gory. In fact,
really?
Yeah, I didn't write a fight scene in Thief of the Night Guild until pretty much near the end.
Dang.
Of the whole book, and there's like one fight scene, I think, and then Queen of the Night Guild has a few more scenes because it's a more active book, but it's definitely faster paced than any of the Last Bucellari books, because it's as internal. The Hunter's story is very internal. Everything's going on inside of his head. This story is much more focused on her and her relationships with the people around her. And so everything is fast-paced. You got these great scenes where you're running and jumping across rooftops and fleeing guards and climbing down ladders and all kinds of fun stuff.
Awesome. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and Rebecca to see if they have any questions for the great Andy.
So, how fun was it to write tormenting characters?
Oh man, more than tormenting her, it was just fun to have such a sassy person. Like the hunter is cynical, he's rude, he's angry, all of that. But Alana is just sassy. Like she will take shit from no one. So it was very much a wish fulfillment character. As I was writing, I was like, oh, my kid said something to me. Oh no, I'm going to put my retort in the characters.
Oh, we've talked about that in past podcasts.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what about you, Rebecca? Did you have anything?
You are publishing books really quick, and I don't see this a lot out of a lot of authors. So how much do you write, and where do you find the time to write?
That's a good one.
I actually set aside about an hour and a half, 2 hours every afternoon, Monday through Thursday, to write. And in that time, I can usually get about 2,000 words in, depending. For some reason, the short stories, just because they're short doesn't mean they're shorter to write. I only get through about 1,000 to 1,500 words a day. So the short story I'm working on now is going to take me 2 weeks to barely crack 20,000 words. The Queen of the Night Guild is 115,000 words, and it took me 8 weeks. So like the time difference is crazy for short stories.
Yeah. We just did a short story anthology with Courtney Cannon's new publishing company, and and Sarah's in that too, actually. Great medieval short story, which it was amazing. But short stories take so much longer to write because you have to condense all this stuff down and you have to be like really technical. Sarah's like, you just write whatever you feel like. She's good at those short stories though. Like that's something I haven't really mastered because I want my characters to like bleed and talk to each other and fall in love and have drama, and like she's really good at short stories, and I'm just like, they meet each other in the end, you know.
Yeah, no, every short story I write gets longer and longer and longer. The last one was 12,000 words. This one's, I'm pretty sure it's going to clock in around 15 to 18,000.
Wow.
It quickly became a novella.
Yeah, pretty much. And actually, I had planned to write a novella, a romance fantasy novella, and it basically became a full-on novel. Like I don't know how to do short.
When I started the Curse of Landville series, it was supposed to be a novella about a college student who goes back in time, kills somebody, and then goes back to the present. And then the first book came out, and Courtney was like, "You're gonna write like 4 more, right?" And so I am. The 4th one's coming out in like 3 weeks. So
that's awesome.
And what series is that?
It's called The Curse of Landville, and it's about this real snarky, sassy college student who, with his sister, they get transported back to medieval France. And he has to take the place of the king, who's actually his ancestor. But he's like a 19-year-old college or 20-year-old college kid. And he just thinks that he's the best thing in the world, that he's God's gift to women, that no one can ever tell him what to do. And he realizes that like you can't do that in 1156 AD. And so that character just developed. So it was supposed to be 20,000 words is what the first part came in at, and it was supposed to be short. And I ended up publishing them in a series.
Awesome, interesting. Andy, what was our word of the day today?
All right, so the word for the day is one that I've never been able to use in any of my fantasy writing, and finally that I'm writing a modern set urban fantasy, I can finally use it. The word is Philistine. Now, anybody who's read the Bible will be very familiar with the Philistines. Goliath. David and Goliath's name, was the Philistine, which was a race or a civilization or a city or nation or whatever. But the word Philistine is used as an improper noun. It is a person who is hostile or indifferent to culture and the arts, or has no understanding of it. Basically, someone who is uncultured and uneducated.
Okay.
So calling someone a Philistine is like calling them a barbarian or a caveman.
Dude, it's my goal now to get that into a book. I'm going to have a female character tell a male character she's in love with, "You haven't heard of Queen, you're a Philistine."
I actually just used it in the short story. I was like, okay, I can finally writing something modern. I used it, and the guy is talking about drinking black coffee, and she calls him a Philistine because she likes, white mocha chip coffee. Just like silly stuff like that. It's really fun to do that with modern writing, but I don't get to do it in fantasy.
I love it.
Nice. And so today's topic is one of great seriousness, and we are talking about toxic relationships, and because that's the kind of stuff Andy likes to talk about. So I'm along for the ride. I actually do have some stuff to talk about. Surprise. And so Andy, did you want to kick us off on that and tell us why that's our theme for this week, or this week's double episode?
Yeah, as I was writing a blog post or responding to a message, I'm not exactly sure, someone said, "Oh wow, it's it's like she's in a relationship with the Night Guild and she's trying to break free." And it made me think about, you hear the stories about people who are married to abusive husbands or wives, or people who are heavy drinkers or drug users, and they're sort of trapped in their life. And this relationship is not necessarily dangerous or even violent or abusive, but it's just toxic. Like, it brings a lot of negative energy into their life, and that's exactly what the relationship between Alana and the Night Guild is like. Is that she's trapped in this relationship, and there's this question of, am I brave enough, or can I get out of this relationship? Can I break free of the Night Guild? And she realizes, for the sake of her child, that she does need to, and that's what gives her the impetus to actually do it. But for if she didn't have a child, I wrote that child in there specifically to give her the reason to break free, because if not, there's no reason, there's no driving force, no exterior force to help her break free of this toxic relationship.
We have no comments on that.
It's funny because I'm in an author chat with Sarah, and we were just talking about cults the other day, and I think Sarah mentioned she was in a cult for like a week, and she was the cult leader.
No. Okay, so long story short, I moved to the city and I went to college, and after about a year, I fell into the pagan group and the New Age group and everything. And during a phone call, while all of my friends were sitting around me, my mother says, "Oh my gosh, you're in a cult." And I went, "What?" And she's like, "You're in a cult." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I hung up the phone and I looked around and I go, "Okay, if we're a cult, which one of us is the cult leader?" And we all just kind of look at each other like idiots. And finally we took a vote and we decided that we would take turns being cult leader for the week. And so I ended up being cult leader for the week.
Andy, who did you get on this show?
I'm immediately regretting that.
But I have a follow-up story.
A follow-up story to that one. Okay.
And it may actually be funnier.
Scoot over, Andy.
So, like 15 years later, I'm sitting there with my husband and my 2 kids, and my daughter was about 5 years old. And we ended up talking for some reason about cults and cult leaders. And I looked at my husband, and because I had told him this story before. I said, "So who's cult leader?" And my daughter goes,
"Wow."
So yes, my daughter is now the cult leader.
Oh wow,
that's made me frighteningly.
It's so funny though, because we happened upon this actually because before the show we were talking about how we almost started the Pathfinder game, and so I was on a road trip with my friend Derek, and he was teasing me about re-raising a cult, and I actually said, "Dude, I think you're actually right," because I was actually raised in a really strict Baptist household. I mean, it was Baptist, but I mean, we weren't allowed to. I was homeschooled. We weren't allowed to leave. We weren't allowed to make friends outside the church. Women were not allowed to wear pants. That's how like restrictive this whole lifestyle was. And I think it just really goes back to what Andy was saying with being in that thieves guild, is like, how do you get out of something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally get it.
I was actually born in a cult.
Yeah, Andy, can you said that like at the very end of a podcast, and I was like, wait, what? and then we have to end, and then you always leave, and I'm like, what's going on? You're okay. Please go on, please. You were born into a cult.
Yeah, basically, it's one of the cults that sprang up from the hippie movements, the Jesus Revolution era, where everybody was, all free love and sex and drugs and spiritual freedom, anti-establishmentarianism. Yeah, and so this is one of these splinter groups that became a cult. Actually, until about 5-10 years ago, it was still around. It was about 13,000 members strong around the world.
In Japan?
I was born in Japan, moved to Mexico, lived there I'm still living in Mexico, Baja California, I just kind of gently transitioned out because I was a member of the cult and doing the cult activities, but then I had a family that I had to support. So given the context of the cult, I couldn't support myself using the traditional methods. So I had to get a job, and that sort of led, one step at a time to just breaking away and being myself. And I wouldn't say for myself personally that it was a toxic relationship with the cult. I have, happy memories of, my childhood growing up doing things like that. But I know for other people, the things that they experienced as part of this group, this cult, did have that negative connotation. So yeah, that's my life story in a minute and a half.
It's a little unsettling, I'm not gonna lie. So what I heard was you became cult leader.
I got Sarah's daughter.
Andy's my daughter.
Whoa!
Wow!
All right,
that's a weird story. I don't want to see.
The end of the podcast.
Yes. We broke the internet.
Yeah, Sarah broke the Fantasy Fiends.
Yeah, that's it. We're done. So going along with this, Andy, I'm not making fun of. When did you get out of this cult? Like last week?
It was
what?
It was like
last week.
A gradual thing, Like I said, I got together with my current wife, who has 4 kids.
Okay.
And so it was like, well, I've got to support them. So what am I going to do? And in 2010, I started working, a traditional job, teaching English in Mexico City, and that sort of started the slow disassociation from the cult activities and things like that. And so anytime between 2011 and 2015, just sort of transitioned out without any big hurrah.
I didn't know you were a teacher until just now.
English teacher, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel like so many authors are English teachers. So I speak. Sarah, what did you do before becoming an author?
FDA regulations, documentation, and QA.
That sounds way more interesting than being an author.
Sounds boring. Being an author sounds like so much more fun. You get to kill fictional people and swear a lot.
Do you kill a lot of FDA people in your books?
No, but I was the odd duck in my job. I know, big shocker here.
Wow.
But,
I wasn't going to say it.
We had an FDA auditor come into our company, and the fools, they decided that they needed me to answer some specific questions and put me in the same room as he was in. And we were talking about how things are hard to keep track of without all the documentation. And so I told the FDA auditor that sometimes my mind is a dark forest in which werewolves live.
I think that's the right thing to say. No, that sounds very appropriate.
That sounds like
a oracle.
Okay, I know we got to get back to Andy, but I have to ask you. You seriously told this man that you have werewolves in your head? Wow, yeah. Sarah and Rebecca, you two definitely have to come back on the show. Oh, we just need to interview you two.
We haven't even talked about the nerdy stuff yet. I know we're here for toxic relationships, but I can seriously go on about displacer beasts and werewolves for a long time, and probably Sarah could too.
Oh man, definitely. And I do have something to add to the toxic relationship topic today, and that is today we just learned that R. Kelly is in trouble yet again. And this time, it also has to do with young females, but the 50-year-old man is accused of keeping up to, I believe, 5 to 15 women locked in a room, and they can't use the bathroom, they can't eat, and they can't text or call anyone without his approval. And that was on national news.
Andy's face is perfect.
Yeah, I'm at work, and I'm like, I got Andy's newest book, Queen of Thieves series, episode 3, R. Kelly's Revenge. Andy, your thoughts?
I had no idea about R. Kelly, but that's some pretty dark shit.
Well, that's definitely a toxic relationship, and he's definitely keeping those women against their will.
What if it's not against their will? What if it's like a BDSM thing?
That's what I was thinking. Like, right? They like it, yeah. But I mean,
it could be a thing.
It could be a thing.
Yeah.
But the women who came out were saying like they escaped, but it still could just be like an attention thing. So who knows? R. Kelly has denied it. But I don't. It was weird to be at work and see this. I'm like, man, that's like the definition of toxic.
Yeah, and what's interesting about toxic relationships, as I mentioned earlier, is that it's not just something. It cannot, it could be a relationship with a parent. It can be a relationship with a friend. It can be a job. It can be an organization you're part of. It can be anything that brings this negative energy into your life. And I know that sounds a little bit new agey and trippy for people who don't like that sort of thing. But it's basically anything that you walk away from feeling, you're not happy. If it's not a relationship that improves your life in some way, then there's a chance that it's toxic and you're not really stopping to think about how it's actually affecting you.
Would it be a spoiler if I asked you, how does your protagonist learn that she's in a toxic relationship if she was born basically into it?
Well, she's not actually born into it. She's sold by her father at the age of 8. And so throughout the course of the training, the 10 years of training, she sees how basically callous the Night Guild is. Someone beats her in Child of the Night Guild, breaks her bones, and because there's no evidence, no one backs up her claims that he did it, they don't punish him. And everything that happens, the guild is like, well, if there's no evidence, we can't do anything, and they just don't care enough to do it. And so as she's going through, her 10 years of training, she realizes, okay, this is not what I want. But because it's all she knows, she's living it. And then at the end of Child of the Night Guild, the thing that happens, she realizes, okay, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. This is not the future that I want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what she decides. And it's not like she ever said consciously, oh, this is a toxic relationship and I'm
out.
But it's a decision that she says, I'm done.
Dance party.
Right.
Apparently somebody really wants to get a hold of me.
Oh, but, okay.
Speaking to toxic relationships, I don't know if I've even told Rebecca this, but I was actually in an abusive relationship in my early 20s. And
we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I don't talk about it very much.
Isolation, I think we've had that conversation.
Yeah. This was, he was physically abusive. He was isolating and things like that. And the thing that made it worse, and probably the thing that kind of is a thread that goes through most of these toxic relationships, is that there is a lot. It's kind of like the boiling frog analogy. It's so bit by bit, you get used to this one little thing and then you get used to this other little thing. And there's never any real point where you go, you know what, this is just me. And so, I remember that there were a lot of things that he asked me to do that I wasn't terribly comfortable with, but because I was in love, I did it for him and I let him get away with things. And, there were a lot of things that went into it. And I think that's why there's so much gaslighting conversation that goes along with toxic relationships. And, like the thing with R. Kelly, It's entirely possible that it was consensual. It was entirely possible that they're trying to get attention, and it's entirely possible that by taking that as the default position that you're actually hurting people more. It's one of those things where it is so hard to even admit it to yourself that you are in this position. And the thing is, Andy and Rebecca know me. I'm kind of what people call a strong woman.
That is an understatement.
I like
Jesus.
that.
So for me, with that kind of perception that people have, and people always talking about how I'm so strong and I'm so confident, blah blah blah. I don't believe half of it, by the way. It's always been very hard for me to acknowledge this thing happened, because if I really was that, how could I ever let that happen? How could I ever let some other person do that to me, to the point where I was willing to put up with it for the rest of my life? And it's really weird what happens to make people kind of snap out of that. The straw that breaks the camel's back can be really odd things. For me, it was the fact that he no longer referred to me as his girlfriend. That was it.
Whoa.
And that's such a weird thing. Like he choked me into unconsciousness a few times. He kicked me in the stomach several times. He emotionally manipulated me, and that's what did it. That's the thing that I could not take anymore. And so it's really odd things that click in your head that this is no longer going to be okay.
Yeah. Sarah, you mentioned gaslighting. For those who aren't familiar, gaslighting is using psychological means to manipulate someone into questioning their own sanity. And that's sort of like used with emotional abuse tactics, where you make yourself the victim in every scenario. You say, everything that someone says, oh, you did something that bothers me, your partner or your friend says, and he says, well, I'm the victim here. That's one of the many techniques used.
Well, and I think toxic relationships have this giant cycle that goes kind of, it's jagged, but it goes around where, you do something, then the person that's abusing you doesn't agree with, and then they say, well, look, you made me hurt you, or you made me do this, and they restrict their behavior, and then it starts all over again. And so that's why it's so hard to get out of toxic relationships, because like Sarah was saying, there's emotions in it. Like, you love this person, and so you think it's okay that they're restricting me, they just care about me. But it gets to the point in the domestic abuse cycle too, where they're taking your freedom, your money, the ability to see kids or family. And when you're having your behavior restricted, you just think it's for the good of that person, whether it's a parent or a significant other. And so like you can't get out of it. It's like Sarah said, there's some simple things like, you did take the dog for a walk. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at all of the abuse I've suffered. I'm gone, despite many different physical violent acts.
Wow. And I do have my own example of the toxic relationship. And it's something I didn't think about until, I got the email that we were going to do this. And I wasn't going to bring it up unless, other people brought it up and, made me more brave. But it's not very, very bad. But it did leave me with 2 herniated discs in my spine. And I was with I didn't know it at the time. It just got progressively worse. But I was with a martial arts instructor for a very long time. And granted, he was excellent. He was super good. He taught me how to fight very well. But it took a turn, and I thought it was just because I'd earned another belt that I needed to up my risk. And that was, he would take us to a park, my brother and I, and he would have us fight with actual wooden bow sticks. And it was full contact with no gear. And then we throw the sticks down and actually go hand to hand. But that's when a 300-pound man joined the fight, and he played for the Baylor Bears here in Texas. So he was a college football player, defensive line. And I took a punch to the head, to the ear actually, and I fell And I got up and continued. And then that end of the day, he made us learn how to do flips on concrete, actual flips. And I landed on my back, and I went home to my mother and my girlfriend, and I was laying on the carpet. I always remember it. And I held my nose, and I could exhale a full breath through my ear.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I could do a full exhale through my ear, and I couldn't hardly move because I was so sore. And went to the hospital. I had 2 herniated discs, one in my neck and one in my lower back. And I still didn't want to quit. And it took my mother and my girlfriend to actually go up to this man and say, he's not coming back. So yeah, I think that's a pretty toxic relationship. And it was a couple months later until I realized what was going on. I kind of woke up out of the trance. So I'm just very happy I had those 2 strong people in my life to see that I was getting physically abused by some man who told me he was my friend and my mentor, and really he was just hurting me. And now I have 2 herniated discs that I can't do squats and I can't do deadlifts anymore.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's a true story. And like today, my back's killing me. So that bastard. And you should write. Sorry, go ahead.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 17 whenever I was forced to quit. And I joined another martial arts, and it was jiu-jitsu, and it just furthered the herniations. So I thought it was going to be safe, and the instructor said it would be safe, and it wasn't. It was horrible. It was a bad idea because I was like going into like neck holds all day long. I don't know. Andy, you did martial arts.
Yeah, for a year and a half.
Jiu-jitsu is pretty hardcore, especially with the rolling that you have to do.
It's really rough on your spine because you're using your core a lot. And so if you don't have good core muscles, it can be pretty brutal.
Yeah, so now I'm martial arts free. I just won't do it anymore.
It's been 2 years since my last Kia. And
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I was surprised that I actually had something to bring to this podcast, but it's pretty serious, and I'm glad I have strong women in my life that saw it, you know. And my mom's a nurse practitioner, so she obviously saw something was wrong with my back. But
Yeah.
As I was saying, it's not just, most people think of toxic relationships or abusive relationships as husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, you know. But the truth is, anybody who's in a position where they can take advantage of you or use their power over you, you know, bosses, coworkers, you hear about this all the time, about the poor schlub who gets stuck with the weekend work because his boss is, you know, running rampant over him, or you know, all kinds of stuff. There's so many different types of relationships that can be toxic, and you kind of have to examine all those relationships, all the relationships in your life, and really take it not just at face value, but look deeper. Say, okay, am I happy when I'm with this person? When I walk away from this person, am I comfortable, or is it something? Am I stressed, nervous, anxious, hyper aware of their mood so that I can avoid angering them? You know, once you kind of wake up and realize that toxic relationships comes in all shapes and sizes, you can actually take steps to examine and get out of it.
And you know, Andy, before this podcast, I don't think I would have looked back at that as a toxic relationship. But after speaking with you ladies and you, Andy, I really feel like it fits into that definition, along with Sarah's thing, which it broke my heart. To be honest with you, that was intense. But I do know that we have to get to the reading, and I didn't want to take up too much time.
Well, Rebecca, you are the expert here, literally.
Yeah. You want to read your dissertation to us? Is it dissertation?
Well, okay, so my dissertation topic is looking at barriers to why students can't succeed in college, because and I work at a community college, and so we have a lot of students that have socioeconomic issues, which means that typically they're, they come from low income, they're first generation students. A lot of them in my community, especially, we have a lot of drug issues. There's a lot of toxic relationships. And so one of the things I've looked at this week in my research has really looked at things like a script thing that Andy sent me. One of the things I've seen lately is that this toxic relationships have a barrier to your success in everything you do. And if someone's telling you, no, I don't support you going to college, I don't support you writing a book or whatever you're doing, like, you just got to walk away from that kind of behavior as much as possible. And never should it be okay for you to ever say, well, I'm sure that they're just saying it out of love. Anything that's said that doesn't support you is not good for you. And you need to surround yourself with positive people, because it impacts your ability to get a degree, to go to work, to have friends. And, you know, like Sarah said, you know, she's a strong woman and fight for the rights of women. And I totally think that that's something we don't have in our society. But for men, too, because men are supposed to be really silent about being abused and being in a toxic relationship. And you're supposed to say, it's okay when my wife freaks out, doesn't agree with me, and yells at me all the time. And, like, we need people to stand up for men too, and I have a lot of students and a lot of people that I have worked with in the past that I've just been like, why don't you say something? Why don't you get out? Why don't you do something? And it's just, well, I can't because I would be weak.
Men do feel that pressure. That is true.
It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, like I would rather hear a guy say, my wife was abusing me, and so, you know, I felt it was time to get a divorce, because to me that means he's a stronger man than the one who sits there in a marriage for 30 years and lets his wife belittle him and talk down to him and not let him do the things he wants to do. I think the one that has to walk away from it at some point is the one that's the stronger one. And a lot of people don't do that, and so they end up in that cycle that I was talking about.
I would say the toxic relationship thing, going back to fantasy, is actually it has, at the very beginning of my novel, The Four Territories, there is a I would say the first 6 chapters is pretty intense with toxic relationships. It's about a young boy who lives at an orphanage, and the headmaster is an actual pedophile. And
no, that's toxic.
Yeah, Andy did.
Clearly toxic.
Andy doesn't know about that. Our young protagonist doesn't get molested, but his bully does. But the bully goes the opposite direction with it and actually likes he doesn't like being molested, but he likes the power it gives him in the orphanage, because he's protected by the headmaster, like it's his little toy. And now I always feel like these podcast themes that we do, I actually revert it back to my book. I'm like, wow, I actually wrote that? Dang.
But we're all authors, so eventually all of our books are going to come up at some point.
Yeah, it all comes back to that. Go ahead, Sarah, Rebecca.
I was going to say, in my fantasy series, Gil has so many toxic relationships because he, for lack of a better word, he just sleeps with all of these women, and he's just like, all these women love me, and he just moves from girl to girl, and he doesn't realize how bad it is for him. Kind of destroys him, makes him an asshole.
Have you ladies, or Andy, have you ever, so The Four Territories is going to be coming out soon, and I have had multiple beta readers ask me to take out the beginning toxic relationship. They found it uncomfortable, and I refused to take it out. Have any of you ever had somebody ask you to take something out? Like, we have an author coming up who has a homosexual character who was my favorite character in the book, and he got a few negative reviews about that. And I was just wondering, have any of you 3 ever been told, hey, you should take that out of your book? It's too much.
I've been nervous about things.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't had anybody tell. Actually, I've had people who are more like, it made me cry and break down for half a day. Leave it. It's beautiful.
Oh, so, that's a
maybe I just have psychotic beta readers.
I have homosexual characters that I've been told to take out, and actually I've had some conversations with Phil that runs the Pagan Musings podcast, and a couple of other people. Like, I really want to represent LGBT in my books, and I actually have a fantasy series with elves that are gay coming out, and one of my friends was just like, you can't write that, elves cannot be gay. That's just a slap in the face of you know true fantasy.
Aren't they always?
And oh wow! And Andy, you have LGBT has a presence in your newest book release as well, right?
Yeah, it is. There is an LGBT character. One of the main character does sort of have this relationship with another woman, and I tried to walk the line because it's a very dangerous subject. She is the victim of a rape in the first book, and so which is how she gets her child.
I thought you said a break, like she got her bones broke.
No, well, that happened earlier in the book.
Yeah, okay. I thought you said a break. Okay.
But then, so in the beginning of the book, actually, in the third chapter of Thieves of the Night Guild, there's a scene where she is having sex with a guy. She's made the decision to do it, and it's almost like she's watching it from behind her own eyes. And it's this really like dissociated scene. And a couple of people have told me, you need to get rid of it because it doesn't work.
That's exactly.
Who I really respect said, no, keep this in because this is exactly what it's like for people who go through it. This is something, and I didn't want to include it gratuitously. I didn't want to include these darker, deeper themes just to make my book scandalous. But I wanted to really be true to the character, and the whole point actually of writing this sort of fiction and doing these discussions is to sort of decriminalize it, but in a way like you were saying earlier. Guys are so ashamed if they're subjects of abuse, or mental health issues have been the subject of shame and embarrassment. People have hidden their deepest, darkest secret that they're autistic or they've got bipolar disorder or they're on depression medications. But I feel like decriminalizing it, demystifying it, making it common talk with everybody gets it out in the open, and there would be so many fewer suicides. There would be so many fewer suicide attempts. There would be so much less negativity and toxicity in the world if we could have these discussions and there wasn't this negative connotation that, oh, you have a mental disorder. I have autism syndrome, and I say it in my newsletter. It's one of the first things that people learn about me is that I have Asperger's syndrome, because I want it to be clear that I'm not ashamed of this something that I have. And if more people see that and they start having this, okay, well, it's just a part of who I am, then PTSD would be gone, because soldiers would no longer be ashamed to get help for PTSD. The rate of suicide among people with depression, bipolar disorder, autism is crazy high because people don't talk about it because they're ashamed, they're hiding it. But by putting it out in the open, by getting it out there, we can address it and it can just become a part of who we are. Oh, I have something. Okay, well, let's take steps to deal with it. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's just like you have a left hand and a right hand. It's just normal.
Man, I gave my character PTSD. She's going to therapy. She's gonna get. My series, The Rune Spells, Nicola in the third book, because of what happens in the first two books, has PTSD, and I'm putting her in therapy and the whole 9 yards. It's gonna be great.
The Rune series.
Oh. I'm sorry.
The Rune Spell series. Rune Spell.
Oh, Rune Spell series. Okay.
And I have a veteran in one of my books that deals with suicide, and nobody likes it. I've had the book returned a couple times because they're like, why'd you make him try to kill himself? And I'm like, because he's a veteran and it was clearly established that he has some issues. And people are like, well, that we don't need to talk about, veteran suicide.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it around.
Yeah. No, these things.
I want to read about therapy of your character, though.
Yeah. Actually, one of my favorite TV shows, Lucifer on Fox. I love it because they had the character go to therapy specifically. Not the rest of the stories are they're fine, but the time that he spends in therapy is so enjoyable, and it's so awesome to see that being such an accepted part of anything. The guy is literally sitting down and talking to someone about all these all of his emotional baggage and psychological issues. That is so cool.
That's a great show.
Hello? We still on? Okay.
Yeah.
Andy,
we were all pondering.
Pondering.
I was just thinking about what therapy looks like for PTSD, because Sarah's writing is so strange and beautiful. Like, I can't wait to see this.
That's a really good way to describe writing. Strange and beautiful. That's what I like to read, actually. Strange and beautiful. Andy, should we go ahead and get to your writing, or is there more you want to talk about?
No. I think we covered it.
I'm a little antsy, though.
Why?
Because I want
Are
to
we all
read
going
it.
to take parts, or is he reading it?
No,
himself?
we are all taking parts.
Yeah.
I chose a scene that had enough dialogue for the 6 of us because there were 2 more people who didn't make it to the podcast. So I got this big scene. But Sarah, I think you're the perfect person to read Alana's voice. If you're okay with that.
Okie doke.
Rebecca.
This was in. Find my emails.
Yeah, I sent a little snippet. Rebecca, would you read Alan?
Alan? Okay.
Yeah. Stevie?
Try to keep up with this. I've never read a group like setting,
Andy,
so.
we have so many emails. I'm trying to find it. So
So what he just sent today. He just sent it like this morning.
You're right. That actually helped. Thank you. So I do have it now. I'm good to go.
Very good.
And,
all right.
And who do you want
Stevie,
me to play?
Can you read? There's 2 characters, Juice and Vesland. They're both sort of like low-class thieves, so you can get away with doing whatever kind of crazy accent you want. And they both kind of talk with each other, so you'll have to be a little bit on top of it to see when they're talking.
Yeah, and you kind of broke up a little bit. You said Juice and who else?
Vesland.
Veselin? Veselin. Okay, I see it now. Okay, I'll try my best.
Yeah.
Juice.
All right, so I'll read the narrator's voice and then the other characters. All right.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Sarah, Rebecca, you guys ready? All right, here we go. Alana studied the men standing around the table.
So, are you ready to find out how we're going to take down the most powerful man in Paramus?
About bloody time.
Veselin growled. Juice grinned at his fellow fox.
Internet interruption.
Oh no. Is that me?
I'm still here.
I'm still here.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Are we good to go?
Yeah. Oh, I think Rebecca might have gotten cut off. Well, if we can't, like she can't do it, I'll read for her. So Juice grinned at his fellow fox's impatience. Dareth's fingers twitched faster than usual. Even Eric's cool facade couldn't quite mask his interest. Alan laughed. You've had us dying to know for days, Alana. Enough with the dramatics and get to it. Alana's smile came easy.
Fair enough.
She produced the blueprints she'd stolen from the coin counter's temple and unrolled them on the table.
Here's everything you need to know.
Everyone leaned forward, craning their necks to see. Long seconds passed as they studied the depiction. Vesland was the first to look up.
What in the frozen hell is that?
Alana chuckled.
It's the plans for a vault door, the most secure vault in the city.
Watch's teeth. Alan's eyebrows rose. And here I thought you were crazy going after the Reckoner's vaults. Now you're telling me? Alana met his gaze with confidence.
Damned right I am.
She bared her teeth in a snarl.
We're breaking into Lord Auslin's crypt.
Eric whistled, and Garrett's eyes went wide.
Now wait a bloody minute.
Vesland held up his hands.
You're not talking about that Lord Auslin, are ye?
Alana nodded.
The one and only.
Juice scratched his head.
Am I missing something? What's so special about him? Sweet mistress.
Vesland gave a derisive snort.
And you always tell people you're the smart one.
Juice scowled.
Lord Auslin,
She interjected before the fox retorted.
is counted among the 5 wealthiest men in the south of Einan. His wagon teams carry goods all over the world. If someone wants to move anything larger than a crate of tomatoes from one city to another, they're almost guaranteed to hire Lord Auslin's teams or any one of the hundreds he owns around Einan.
Alan nodded. Calling him wealthy would be an understatement. He could spend 100 imperials a day for 1,000 years and not make a dent in his fortune. Juice whistled, and even Vesland looked impressed.
So we're just going to help ourselves to some of his gold? If he's as rich as you say, he won't miss a few score thousand imperials.
He grinned and clapped a hand on Juice's shoulder.
We'll be rich!
Alana held up a hand.
There's no doubt you'll walk away from this job the wealthiest men in your house, but we're not going to touch a single copper bit of Lord Auslin's money.
Alan turned a curious expression on her. Eric leaned forward, and Dareth's gaze ceased its wandering. Juice narrowed his eyes.
So how are we going to get paid?
We're going to steal Lady Aslan.
Alan choked on his ale. Twisted hell! Eric's cool demeanor cracked and he stood. How in the hell do you plan to do that?
Hold on.
Juice slammed his palms on the table.
I'm all for thieving, but kidnapping's a different matter.
His face fell as Alana laughed.
Lady Aslan.
Oh, is that me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're the
What? I'm sorry. My bad. What?
Lady Aslan's been dead for more than 2 decades, Juiced.
She fought back her mirth, but her laughter refused to subside.
So we're kidnapping a bleeding corpse?
Disgust twisted Juice's face.
That ain't the sort of thing we signed on for.
Not a corpse, Dareth said in his grating voice. We are stealing Lady Aslan's golden sarcophagus.
What now?
Sarcophagus, the scorpion mouths twitched. A fancy coffin made of stone or metal, usually adorned. In the case of Lady Aslan, Alan added, it's made of solid gold encrusted with gemstones. He turned to Alana. Worth hundreds of thousands of imperials, from what I hear. Alana shook her head.
Not hundreds of thousands.
She dropped her voice.
Millions.
The word hung in the air, and none of the men in the room could hide their shock.
Death is the one thing money can't fix. When Lady Aslan fell ill, Lord Aslan spent a fortune on physicers and healers from around Einan. Didn't do a darned thing. After her death, Aslan did what he could to make her live forever, had her embalmed and stored in a golden sarcophagus, spent millions of imperials on the purest gold, the brightest diamonds and gemstones, all to make his lady love a final resting place worthy of her memory.
How romantic. Eric's voice held a sardonic edge. Alana shrugged.
Serves our needs perfectly.
Vesman scratched his beard.
Seems to me the man who'd make a golden sarcophagus would be the sort to make it impossible to get at.
And you'd be right, Vess.
Alana tapped the blueprint spread out on the table.
This is Duke Faunus' greatest invention, a vault door designed to be impenetrable.
The heavy bearded fox gave a defeated shake of his head.
As I said, impossible.
Alana gave him a cold, hard smile.
Which is precisely why we're going to do it.
Alan studied the blueprints through narrowed eyes. And that's what this is?
The way in.
Alana tapped the drawings.
The Duke's original plans for the vault door. Dimensions, metals used, design of the locking mechanisms, fail safes, everything we could need to get in.
She leaned forward with an eager grin.
Is how we bring down the Duke.
Juice and Veslin looked confused. Darren spoke up. Prove the Duke's most secure vault is a failure, and his reputation and business fail. Damn straight! Excitement brightened Alan's face. With this, we can figure out a way to get through that door and get the treasure stored within. Millions of Imperials worth. So, we've got the blueprints to the door. A good first step. Eric crossed his arms. But that's just the beginning. We've got to figure out how to get into the house. No easy task, mind you. Get in and find the vault. Of course, pretending we can do all that, there's the little matter of moving the sarcophagus itself. Not exactly sized to fit in your pocket. Gareth drummed his fingers on the table. By my calculations, we're talking the weight of 4 or 5 men. Big men, like him. His finger indicated Jarl, who sat quietly in the corner.
And that's exactly why I've brought him in on this.
At Alana's nod, the huge hawk came to stand at the table. All eyes turned to the Pathfinder. Jarl met their scrutiny with calm, a hint of a smile on his face.
Don't get me wrong.
Veslin spoke with hesitation.
I'm all for the big fella doing the heavy lifting, but won't we need a few more of him?
Alana grinned.
No.
More than a few eyebrows shot up.
Jarl's not going to be carrying the bloody thing. He's going to figure out how to get it and us out of Lord Oslin's mansion.
Alana placed a hand on Jarl's shoulder.
Plus, he's going to build the vault door for us to figure out how to break in. Unless any of you all have any smithing experience to speak of.
The assorted guild members shook their head.
No?
And you're sure you can trust him?
Juice asked in his laconic drawl. Alana's lip curled upward. The fox held up his hand in a defensive gesture.
Hey, I have to ask. You made us all swear an oath.
Jarl's voice, rarely heard, sounded like rumbling thunder. I, too, have sworn. He met Juice's gaze, as if daring him to speak. Swallowing, Juice held out a hand.
Welcome to the team, big guy.
Jarl didn't drop his eyes or grasp Juice's hand.
I trust Jarl.
Alana allowed a note of steel into her voice.
That is enough for all of you.
No one seemed inclined to argue, either with Alana or the hulking Pathfinder.
Now, with that settled, it's time to move on to the assignments.
She turned to the foxes.
Joost, Vesland, I need you to find out everything you can about Lord Oslin. His travel habits, the establishments he frequents, the food he likes to eat, and more. Hell, find out how many times he pisses in his chamber pot. Any tidbit of information, no matter how useless it seems, is important.
The two men nodded, but made no move to leave. Alana raised an eyebrow.
Well?
Meslin says, eyes darting around the room.
Seems like we're going to be doing a share of the works. Seems only fair to me we gets the shares of your haul.
Alana pursed her lips.
Day wages aren't enough for you?
Juiced cringed behind Vesland, but the bearded fox continued.
Don't get me wrong, you've been nothing but fair, but we're talking millions of Imperials here.
Alana nodded. She expected this.
I'll offer you 1% of the take, each.
Vesland's eyebrows knitted, and Juice frowned in concentration. Tens of thousands of Imperials each. Exasperation tinged Dareth's voice. Both foxes went wide-eyed.
Done! Done!
They rushed from the room before Alana changed her mind.
Eric, for now, I need you to do the same. Find out everything you can about Lord Oslin.
The serpent inclined his head.
And
Alana held up a finger.
scout the property.
She jerked a thumb at the door.
Those two will stick out in Old Paramus like a blood bear in petticoats.
Eric grinned. Got it.
3%'s the best I can do.
Eric pondered a moment. 5.
Done.
Alana shook his hand. Considering the total value of the haul, 5% was absolutely fair, and the amount she'd intended to give him from the beginning. She turned to Dareth as Eric strode from the room.
Dareth, your task is to interpret this blueprint. Somewhere among all of these numbers are the dimensions of the vault door. Figure them out and give me the details.
She placed a hand on Jarl's shoulder.
Jarl here is going to build the door with your help. Your job is to figure out the materials he'll need. When the time comes to put the door together, you're going to make sure it's built exactly as it's shown here.
Dareth gave a little twitch of his fingers. I'm not much of an architect.
Oh, but you've got a head for numbers. Between you and Jarl, I trust you can figure it out.
Dareth frowned as he studied the blueprint. I may have to bring in some outside help on this. Alana shook her head.
Only if absolutely necessary. I chose you because you're among the smartest of the Scorpions.
Yes, but this, he tapped the parchment with a slim finger, looks like some kind of code. Alana bent over the parchment. Indecipherable symbols and markings occupied the upper right corner of the blueprint.
Damn, so it does.
She looked up.
Think you can crack it?
Dareth shrugged. I'll give it a try. Might know a few people I can ask. He spoke before she could protest. I'll copy a few of the symbols on a separate parchment to show around.
Good. The fewer people who know what we're doing, the better.
So be it. Dareth fumbled in his satchel and produced a graphite stick and parchment. Bending over the blueprints, he began muttering to himself and scratching notes on his paper. Alana turned to Alan.
I'll want you to do some digging on Lord Oslin too, but not just yet.
Alan worked an eyebrow. Got something in mind for me? Alana nodded.
You, me, and Jarl are going to do a different sort of digging first.
End of scene.
Ooh, love it, love it, love it. And that's why you
I'm
were
so
doing.
mad I had to miss it. Most of it. Ugh.
Where,
Sorry, Rebecca.
I'm glad you got to see the last half.
It was so infuriating last term when I was teaching Tuesday nights because Andy kept doing his live readings on Tuesdays, and I'd be in class and he read a scene from my book where my character just gets his like ass handed to him during a sword fight, and like I didn't even get to tune in. I was like, oh.
Andy, you're a horrible person, man. So rude.
I'm pretty sure that's not the takeaway from what she was just saying, but cool.
Yeah, the takeaway was like, holy crap, Andy Pelican is reading my book.
I actually have so much fun doing these things. Like I've said before, I started this podcast, or I said, hey Stevie, let's do this podcast just so we can do the live readings, because that's so much fun for me. And I don't think there's a lot of people that do it either.
No, there's not. A lot of people don't like go live. I know a few that do. I mean, Sarah like does live a lot. But most of the authors I know are just like, I'm too ugly to go live. I don't have a good voice, and I'm like, who cares? Just do it.
But if you,
I hate going live by myself. Like I feel stupid talking to a screen. Like, how's it going?
oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But but aren't they going to see their face later on, or are they just not putting it on YouTube?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Well, Andy, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank
I
you.
see why you were doing so much research on bolts.
Yeah, I mean, so much research went into that book. I spent like 2 weeks doing research on everything. Romantic relationships. This is the first book where romance actually comes into play. So I had to actually do some hardcore research on how to write romance properly. It's a lot harder than you think. I didn't know that, because I've never really written it. So
It's really hard, and you have to like. I mean, there's a lot of romance novels out there that kill me because it's a lot of this like, she looked at him and she knew it was love at first sight, and it's like so unrealistic. I hate it, and romance is exhausting to write. You don't like that either, Sarah? The instant romance.
No, I'm.
Drives me insane.
Yeah,
Hate it.
I play around with romance, and the hardest part, in my opinion, is the fact that you feel like a total cheesy moron doing it.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, let's write a sex scene. Derpy, derpy, derpy.
Whoa.
That's me.
yeah, exactly.
Actually, I just had this conversation because I'm not even publishing any more romance novels this year. I'm going to fantasy and dystopian, and because my romance stuff doesn't have sex in it and it's not selling.
Well, yeah, no. Whenever I write romance, I'm working on this urban fantasy short story now, and I'm writing sort of a guy meets girl, guy dates girl, blah blah blah. But I've never done that. I met my girlfriend, now my wife, within the context of our our cultural organization. So I've never gone out on a proper date. I've never asked a girl out to coffee or bought her a drink. None of that. So I have, like, with fantasy, I can get away with doing it. Oh well, in the Middle Ages it was done this way. I can say that. But in a modern dating setting, I have no idea how to do that.
I haven't either, and there's a lot of you have to make stuff up. Like, my characters do real cheesy things like go to coffee. In every one of my books, they go get coffee, or they go like ice skating. My short story, they went like roller disco in like the 1980s, because I was like, what do people do? I've been married for 17 years, guys. I don't even remember like what we did and when we first started dating.
Well, I have the advantage.
Yeah, Stevie, you can be my romance consultant.
Yeah, all of Andy's sex scenes are from my head.
That could be good or bad. I'm not really
30
sure.
or 45 seconds.
It's a bit of both, the good and bad.
Wow.
Okay, I think we're pretty much done. Like, we're already over time, and my wife comes home and sees me on the podcast. I'm gonna be in trouble. So.
Hey, that's a toxic relationship. I was this close to not saying it. I was scared. I thought Andy was gonna get on to me, but okay, good.
I'm totally glad you did, because I was
Okay,
thinking
good.
it, but I couldn't say it.
Oh, hey,
Somebody should have said it.
On the off chance that she happens to watch one whole podcast all the way through to the end, I get in trouble.
that's a quick way for her to not like your co-host. You never did this podcast, Mrs. Pelican. Andy made me say it.
There was cookies involved.
Well, do you want me to go ahead and close it out, Andy?
Yeah, close it out.
Okay. Well, we all want to wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on another excellent book. By the way, I love your book covers. They really suit your style of writing.
Thank you.
And Sarah, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. And it's so nice to meet you. I know y'all have met Andy before, but I never have. And I would love to have you two wonderful ladies back on the podcast. It was wonderful. I'm sorry, Rebecca, you didn't get to join in.
Okay.
So we wish you, Andy, the best of luck. And I want to ask everybody who's gotten this far to please like and subscribe this video. It really puts us out there in the YouTube universe, which we know is very vast, and it's easy for people to get lost in such a massive universe. I'm going to start doing that by the end of these podcasts. I should have been doing this a long time ago. So please like and subscribe. That really helps us out. Please leave us a honest review on iTunes. That would also be very helpful. And again, thank you, ladies, for being on. Andy, you're the best. Second to me only, but that's all right.
Thank you. So as Steve said, this is a bonus podcast, and we're going to have our regular one on Thursday night. We are going to have Alicia Christine Sears, and I believe we're going to be talking turning disabilities into abilities. I did a video panel on it a few months ago, and I'm really excited to talk about it again because it just so happens that the protagonist of the story that I'm working on right now is a blind person, which is awesome. She is a blind assassin.
Wow, that must be hard to write.
Daredevil.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that is the ending of this bonus episode. And Andy, your book is on Amazon.
Yeah.
Kindle
You can find it through
Unlimited.
my website, andypeliquin.com, or on Amazon under Andy Peliquin.
Okay, and it is under Kindle Unlimited, so people can pick it up for free. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much, viewers and listeners, for joining in on this bonus episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and we will see you Thursday. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Andy.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
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 Yeah.